second. All right, y'all. All right, here we go. Welcome back to the Wilderness Podcast. Yeah, we back. Got to get ourselves situated. So, tonight's show, the Implosion of False Settlement show. We're gonna be talking a great deal about the settlements that people that came to the Americas. So we're gonna talk about that. We're gonna talk about a few more things too. I got my whip moments. Give me a second. Let me get those pulled up. Yeah, we back. I just had to get my whip moments pulled up. Let me see. The implosion of false settlements. The first one will be critical. No. Sorry. Chattel movements and enslavement of peoples. The chattel movement and enslavement of peoples that's still going on to this very day. It never stopped. It never ended. It never. They're making movies about it. They have always made movies about this, and it wasn't. And it's only because it was to exploit and to always change the tide and form allegiances, changing people's origins, changing allegiances, sending them to Indian schools, removing peoples. I got books right here, three very valuable books that I was. It's the Southeast Indians and American Revolution. Let me turn my camera around so you guys can see when I do share on TikTok. Here we go right there. Southeast Indians, American Revolution. So people want these, you want references, you want facts. You gotta have these references and facts to let people know that you're well read, well studied, and you understand where you're coming from, what you're talking about. Here it is right here. The removal of the Choctaw Indians. Here's another great book to understand. These books were taught in schools at one point in time also. They removed these books in the 80s. I'm going to show you. I'm going to give you the dates of them. This is by James H. Donnell III. This is when this is by Arthur D. Rozier Jr. And this one is also by, let's see, William Berserker. Oh, this is the Choctaw removal. The Choctaw removal. No, the Choctaw before removal is this one here. Choctaw before removal. So we're gonna get into these books most definitely, and we're gonna get into what happened when these people came. You see the helmet, right? For God, glory, and gold. All right. So I just have to give you guys references because we like references, right? We like to have references. We like to know on this show, the Wilderness Podcast, we like to know the origins of things. We like to understand, before people start colonizing the actual history, there was real history. There are real records. There are real stories. There are real accounts that happened before these exchanging of the tide of people. Yeah, people were exchanged like currency. We still are, right? That hasn't stopped. We still are exchanged, and we are a part of currency and chattel to this very day. So when people always talk about who was enslaved, because keep in mind you have to understand a few things, and we're going to get to that tonight as well. But for starters, we have to actually understand the origins of the word slave. That would be Slav. It's of Slavic origins. It's in the name. I don't even have to tell you to look it up, but if you want to, you just shall. You can. But those people they had a lot of different titles as well. Khazarians, as such, Eastern Europeans had different titles, different that they really changed and adopted religions and titles and um, different cultures. That was very, very, very prominent amongst Europeans is adopting different cultures. The reason why they adopt different cultures is to mask that the fact that they don't want to tell you of their origins of cultures. But we're going to focus on this because in order for people to be actually, when you use the word removal, think about it. It's in the language, the word removal. In this book right here, removal. That means something had to happen. Someone raised WAR on people. This is what actually happened. So this is Mid City, Oklahoma. This book was 1985. I told you they removed these books in the 80s. So this is taught at Rose State College, Learning Resource Center. It doesn't have the library card, but it was withdrawn. Withdrawn. Look at it. Look at so the removal as well as the book was withdrawn. You see that? Withdrawn. Ain't that something? Get that out of here. Yeah, Choctaw Indian Communities, 1984. 1984. Check this out here. Choctaw oral traditions relating to tribal origins. Members of the Mississippi. Oh, here we go. This is chapter 1. Choctaw oral traditions relating to tribal origins. Members of the Mississippi Band Choctaw Indians do not use the common European terms legend, fable, and myth to distinguish among the many different aspects of their oral traditions. The Choctaw too use terms stories in reference to all aspects of their oral traditions. Live visibility restriction. What did I do? Oh, man, live visibility. What did I do? Oh, I'm always getting restricted for something. I don't even know what I did. Okay. Well, check this out. Maybe I don't need to show the book visibility or something. Maybe that's what it is. I'm sorry. Oh, I showed the picture up. So it says, okay, they want to limit that. Okay. All right. I guess that's what it was. So I will read to you instead of showing you the book, I guess. They got a lot of restrictions on TikTok. It's weird. But they do. So check it out. The Choctaw use the term stories in reference to all aspects of their oral traditions, and I will do so as well. The Choctaw tells several kinds of stories with several severity, which serve a variety of purposes. Some stories explain why things are the way that they are, why the possum has a large mouth, and why a man's toe looked like a snake's head. Others provide rules of suggesting behaviors for people to follow. The turkey and the terrapin and the fox and the rabbit. Such stories called shoka, anapa, and that hog talk, and generally told in a humorous manner, despite sometimes grisly elements of examples of depth in various characters. Some stories explain ancient historical events, the origins of corn, and the legends of Cumberland Mountain. Several stories do not fit easily into any category. The Choctaw origin stories that include in this essay represents a variety of story form. As Swanton and several other authors have noted, the Choctaw tell two main stories which explain the tribal origins of the current geographically located Mississippi Band Choctaw Indians, and one of their stories reflect the migration origin. The others, a creation origin. I present various of these, plus the story in which explains the current geographical location of the Choctaw without easily fitting into one of the categories. Last named story has the added interest of having passed from current Choctaw usage. Now check this out. The Nani Waya Temple mound is believed to have been for the foundation of the temple that have stood in a complex of mounds that covered several acres. I can show YouTube, just can't show TikTok. Now that started off, you understand the Mississippi Mound Builders, the Choctaw, that's pretty much, you understand that they came from the Mississippians. That's their origins. So, okay, we done with this portion, but see, those are the origins. That's just, I read that from chapter 1 in the book to let you know that's people's origins. They don't have any. They didn't come from. They're dark skinned like me because they're my ancestors, but they don't have. They don't come from somewhere else. They came from that region of the world, from its inception. That's where they're from. So let me get to some whip moments. I just like to kind of start off with some interludes that are pertaining to the way I want to carry the story tonight. I'll carry my whip moments as well, my message across. Some people like to pick from the middle and practice cognitive dissonance. That's the second whip moment. I'll repeat it again. Some people like to pick stories or pick their point in times or so that they can have their perspective, which I call it, that's cognitive dissonance as well. That's associated with cognitive dissonance because you're not acknowledging the origins. You're not acknowledging the start. You're not acknowledging, where things begun. You only want to pick and choose and decide where you fit in. And a lot of times when a person tries to fit in, their stories don't add up. That's why they call it his story. Because a lot of the times when the people of origin, as if you notice globally, are they live in the crevices. They don't live in the big cities. They live in the nook and crannies of society where, if they come out or if you notice that they were there, they most of the time are of a dark complexion. So if you go from anywhere, if you go to Thailand, if you go to the Philippines, if you go to anywhere in the world, I mean, it could have been if you go to Pakistan, India, any place, those people are dark and brown melanated people. So the wonderful thing about truth is you'll always have a real foundational balance. You'll always have a foundation, something to always go back to and say, damn, okay, well, this is where this began. And you also know everything in between because that goes with chronology. You know what I'm saying? Chronology actually gives you the start and the present because no one can predict the future. So it's always the start and the present when you have to have chronology. So if you look at, books that were written in the 1900s by Europeans or European-esque people, these books were written to enhance or embrace Western modern society. But these people did not have the instruments to even build this modern society because you have to know who or study who were the builders, learn from them, and then you had to propagate to the world that those people didn't do those very inventions. And I love the creators out here, especially all peoples of all kind. I can't even say just the Black creators, but all of the creators in the world that I have discovered and are continuing to put out, the Black legacy, the history of Aboriginal peoples globally, but also that began in America. That began in the Americas. That's why we are celebrated because of the ingenuity amongst all the oppression, the ingenuity. So that's why here at the Will List podcast, we're always going to stay focused on understanding what intrigues us about the past because it correlates with what the present is today. And I think a lot of people are starting to understand how that is so important in this point in time because you see all the like the reason why the show is called the implosion of false settlements is because they used they stood on the backs of the indigenous classes of people globally in order to enhance their wealth and their and use and manipulate the systems that were already in place. These systems were already functioning, but it's who was implementing and running the whole show. So when it comes to capital, when it comes to I got a book that breaks this down. Oh, it's called Denial. Here it is right here. It's called Denial by Barbara Fries. Yeah, it's going into this right here. Denial. Oh, sorry, TikTok. I didn't mean to show the book up. My apologies. I didn't mean to do it. My bad. But this book's called Denial by Barbara Fries, and she goes into the industrial strength denial. And let me give you the introduction and dangerous phenomenon. And then she talks about a more pleasing representation, the alternate reality crafted by the slave lobby. And then the wondrous stimulant, radium, risk, and responsibility. The nut behind the wheel, car makers avoiding blame for highway deaths. So let's get into all of this, man. This is a very thorough book. So let's start with chapter 1. Oh yeah, page 1 is a real. She starts it off pretty going ham. So the head of the biggest American tobacco company said that the journalist in 1998, do you feel bad about selling cigarettes? No, I do not. I don't know why I should, he explained. Nobody knows what you turn if you didn't smoke. Nobody knows what you would turn into if you didn't smoke. Maybe you beat your wife. Maybe you drive cars fast. Maybe you drive your car faster. Who knows? What the hell you do? 2 years later, the CEO told a newspaper that he quit smoking on the advice of his doctors. There was no mention of the article of whether he turned to domestic abuse or reckless driving. The book tells the story of 8 major companies and corporations denial the terms to use broadly, including the lies, delusions, and rationales that emerge when people working in competitive, profitable driven groups, enterprises, and paid with powerful evidence that they are causing harm. Tobacco is a policy from the people. Products created releasing dangerous pollutants. Previous generations saw even in people in the business selling and owning their own fellow beings. Understand? In almost every case, the worst stories in the exciting discovery, for example, the new world, a new means of mass production and ways in packaging financial risk. An industry races to exploit, discover, and succeed, sometimes changing society along the way. And each of these commercial activities has caused a grave harm to other peoples on the planet. Those outside of the industry find evidence of this harm, raise the alarm, and the public debate ensures corporate responsibility offer a flurry of denials, perpetuating the harm of blocking policies that will reduce it. The specific denials, which is the focus of the book, varies, but the theme echoes from campaign to campaign. Each chapter also describes how people have challenged the industry denials and eventually reduced the harm, usually through a mix of evidence gathering, media attention, lawsuits, social activism, political movements, and new laws. While it was not my intent to begin, the chapters had a chapter to stand a handy reminder of just what so many types of corporations activity need to be monitored, challenged, and regulated. And that's what these corporations do fight for, very much so a lack of regularity. But let's keep going. It is not surprising that those that work for corporations accused of causing harm would deny it. Many of us would be surprised in the lack of such denials. Some people just shrug, view the denial in some kind of boyish corporations will be corporations acceptance. Others shake their heads in condemnation. chalking denials up of greed, which such resign acceptance and blanket moral judgment to take a closer look in the dangerous phenomenon, some serious attention. For one thing, the rich realm of reality, distorted offer in the revealing window into the human mind. The struggles to understand reality may be interesting, but the struggle to avoid unwelcome realities is fascinating, demanding far more mental acrobats. When the struggle plays out within the group of dynamics, with inventive and motivated groups urging others to accept a skewed view of facts, sometimes with life and death consequences, you have an epic human drama. The body of the now, preferred by industry after industry, can be seen as both its own genre of fiction and its own subfield of psychology. Subfield of psychology. God damn. Very true. Moreover, we should study corporate denial because because corporations dominate our economy, shape our democracy, and for a huge portion of America, corporate incentives, pressure, norms, and culture govern our work lives. In America, about 7 of every 10 members of the labor force work in a for-profit corporation, and about half of these businesses are over 500 employees. Picture the output of a nation's workforce as a great river of human effort, skill, and creativity, and then realize that most of the river flows through the corporate setting. Surely we need to better understand how this dominant but artificial form of human organization affects our mental process and moral behavior, including the extremes of the now it can foster. Because some people are afraid to speak about anything because it can cost them their job. And I completely understand that. I do. But it doesn't change the fact that these things affect a great deal, a great deal of so many people, and that awareness is key. Awareness is key. So the more we understand and how to educate people about the schematics of these things, they change from within because we are the people that work in these environments. It is also worth looking at a corporate denial for the light it sheds into defining controversies of our own momentum in history. First is the growing despite over the actual faculty or the actual factuality true, how society should determine that. A sort of meta dispute that includes everything from the reality of climate change to the size of inauguration crowds. We live in a highly polarized political era, many call post-truth, where the perception of objective reality that was once widely shared across society has been fractured. This is usually seen as a result of a social media and cable news, which lets people live in partisan information bubbles that confirm what they believe, dismissing unwelcoming information as fake news or hopelessly biased. Certainly, the new information landscape has fueled this of skewing facts, eroding social trust, and inviting people to embrace the reality that prefer rather than the ones that evidence supports. The second controversy is over corporate power and social responsibility. Every few decades, the issue rises from the background hum of social controversies to command broader attention. And this is one of those times in the United States, the libertarians' right, promoting a faith in unregulated capitalism that was till recently considered extreme, largely dominates the Republican Party, while the Trump administration deviates from the market fundamentalism in some ways like the taste of tariffs, is the indeed unraveling many environmental, financial, and other limits on corporate behavior, while stocking the federal judiciary with judges who appear inclined to continue the unraveling for years to come. Whew. Well, I tell you, I told you this book right here, purely worth the money. Oh, sorry, TikTok. My apologies. Jeez. Anyway, here you go. This is a book. Check this book out. It is one of the. It's very fascinating. It's also very enlightening, very eye opening, and it's, as you can see, it's extremely current. Very, very, very current. So let me get the chat. Let me. I need page 20. I wanted to give you a little bit of that too. A more pleasing representation. The alternate reality crafted by slave lobby. Check this out. In 1562, the English slave trade was launched with a voyage to Africa, had the financial backing of several prominent English officials. When Queen Elizabeth I later spoke with the leader of the expedition, she reportedly expressed her hope that no slaves had been carried off without their consent, because that would that would be detestable. Call down the vengeance of heaven upon the undertakers. She must have been satisfied with her answer, because she sent one of her ships along one of the next slaving expeditions. In time, Britain would out complete the European rivals and dominate the Atlantic slave trade. In the late 1700s, though the abolitionist movement arose, stressing the brutal suffering inflicted on the slave lobby, both slave trader and slaveholder in the British West Indies, launched a sophisticated campaign arguing that slavery was entirely consistent with the nation's self-image as human and enlightened, as humane and enlightened. In fact, they argued they were helping the slaves who enjoyed their captivity, who could not handle freedom anyway, and who were much better off than they had been left in Africa. Now, this is one of these notions that they have created to make themselves feel as if these things are true. I don't agree with this book anyway, at this point, but this has to be. People have to understand these things exist, and of course, an abolition debate would also rage in the United States, but the rationalization of slavery would press well beyond the commercial roots to become deeper, entrenched examples of societal denial. The British defense of slavery could more fairly be seen as the early through extreme cases of corporate and industrial denial, as the established industry tries to portray its behavior to the British public too far away to observe it. British slavery debate displayed tribalism in the most naked form, for peoples not merely drawing lines between their groups and out groups, but literally debating who was human and who was not, and what being human meant. It literates the overwhelming influence of the accepted behavior and attitudes within one's own tribe, the social norms, in shaping how evidence is interpreted. And it shows the industry scrambling to stay within a shifting social norm, partly by creating an interlocking web of denials so complete as to amount to an alternate reality. Now, of course, I don't agree with anything that I'm reading, but it's the truth. I don't agree with the actions of it. I don't agree with nobody being treated this way. I have to say that because we're on these platforms, but this book is, and I hope I'm saying the correct thing. This book has absolute information that needs to be read due to these were the attitudes of how people treated and subjugated and actually believed uh, they believed these notions. So as the rise of respected industry, dazzling and dehumanizing, Atlantic slave trade shared many features of the modern commercial industry. It was carried out by competitive, profit driven groups, enterprise backed with complex capital arrangements, and integrated into vast global networks for commerce. The very earliest English slaving voyages in the 1560s were backed by the early forms of corporations, which multiple stockholders would enjoy limited liability. In the 1600s, when the slave trading was dominated by national monopolies, England Royal African Company became one of the largest, become one of the world's largest corporations. As a pro-slavery writer would note, slaving was not some clandestine or piratical business, but an open public trade encouraged and promoted by acts of parliament. For so, in being contrary to religion, it must be deemed a national sin. According to the British history, Hugh Thomas, among those who owned shares in slaving corporations were members of the royal family, noblemen, members of parliament, and such leading lights of Jonathan Swift, Daniel Defoe, Sir Isaac Newton, Alexander Poe, and even John Locke. Those whose writings of liberty would famously help inspire an American and French Revolution was invested in the slave trade. By the late 1700s, 10 big firms and hundreds of small ones sponsored slave voyages. Just in the thriving slave ports of Liverpool, a contemporary source of claiming that the potential profits are so dazzling the population that many of Liverpool's slave ships were fitted out by authorities, draped in drapers, ropers, grokers, tallows, chandlers, barbers, tailors, etc., each with their share in the enterprise. Profiting the slavery was considered respectable across Britain's lower, middle, and upper classes. Slavery was deemed critical to fully exploit the vast resources of the New World. Fabulously valuable tropical crops like cotton, tobacco, sugar demanded backbreaking work in the tropical heat, and the slave lobby argued that African slaves were necessary because white people could not handle the fatigue causing the cultivation of the tropical climate. But that still didn't make you not a slave. You were just a willing participant in the corporation simply because what we have today. See, all things are a step into the slaughterhouse. I hope you understand. That's what this book is basically saying. So, the way we conduct ourselves, the way we make our money, the way we do everything, it is a system, most definitely. But it can be a better system. It can be a more just system. Let me get to the next book moment. The first slaves, European. I covered that. But the disassociation, what years created the white, agreed upon. People globally. Well, the next whip moment is the disassociation, the white's disassociation with black, as that continues to become the big separation of the world. Like we talk about, they say melanin and melanin. And I'm gonna tell you why. I'm gonna tell you why all these differences give us are gonna give us a if you don't understand what differences are and embrace differences, it doesn't have to be a war amongst men. It doesn't have to be any of those things. But it doesn't have to be a war against the melanated and non-melanated. It has to be education between the melanated and non-melanated, as well as the melanated and the melanated. And from what I've learned, white and white. So this is the policing thing, the disassociation. See, the problem with when whites disassociate, uh, or let's say no, let's rephrase that. When white people associate with black people or people or melanated people, I think they have this notion that we're the same. And I think that benefits some groups and it's not beneficial to other groups, however you want to see it. But follow me. See, when you're in the eyes of most white people, they don't value people of color. They not add value for people of color. You have to show and some not saying tap dance, but you have to be somewhat of attractive or some form of their being impressed with you and how you carry yourself and how you speak and move about. So it makes them more comfortable when they see you as intelligent. Most black don't care, like unless you're working in corporate. When we're in everything that you do, you got to fit the bill. You got to do what's necessary, of course. Oh man, Mike was coming out. So of course you want to do what's necessary. Let me make sure my mic is on this damn thing too. I think I did check it earlier. Make sure. Hold on. Check my audio. Ah, damn. Wish somebody test me if they couldn't hear me. They can hear me now. If they couldn't hear me before. All right. So damn, I lost my train of thought because I was trying to make sure I had my volume on. But no, check it out. What was I discussing? I was talking about how damn how white tea people and black the respect meter or the respect level between the two. Well, if I'm in the street or if I'm on my off time, if I'm in my neighborhood, no, I don't we most black people don't even concern ourselves with white people at all, like none whatsoever. They're not even a thought. And I'm pretty sure it's the same on the other side of the game. We don't it's the same. We don't That's what it is. So it's not like I don't think collectively black people, and I'm talking about black and white people have actually love hate relationship. We don't have a relationship. We just don't. We never have had a relationship. Um because the the who controls the media and who controls America, which is deemed the dominant society, well, that's where you get the separation. If you can check it out, go to church. You churchgoers out there, the most segregated day in America is on Sunday. The most segregated day in America is church, neighborhoods, and they try to make it grocery stores or as many ways they can separate as possible. So they can see from afar because they're always studying. Hell, the whole world studies Black Americans, but we study back. We study the whole world as well. So I don't. The thing is, we don't go places. When I've traveled, when I was around, when I've been around the globe, I didn't treat people or try to degrade people or try to demean anyone. It's not my nature. I try to be as hospitable as possible. And with my exchanges, I'm trying to learn. I'm trying to learn from wherever I am. I want to learn. I want to see what's going on. I want to see how they do things. I want to show appreciation to their cultures. I want to show appreciation to how they move about, or show me. You know, when you're nice, people show you things, and they can tell that you appreciate, the exchange between you two. So, and some places I've been, they weren't so nice, and I didn't give a shit because I already knew they had that mentality of, and I knew where they got that mentality. So it was no muss, it was cool. It's nothing, no worries. But I think the real problem, it has to do with, like, like I was bringing up Jane Elliott the other day. It has to do with a false confidence. You know what I'm saying? People have these false confidence, these false notions, and they just think, well, in America, I can be whatever I want to be. That's comes at a cost. Some people live. Um, some people are fortunate, but if you think you're going to come to this country and you're going to be famous, or you're going to come to this country and you're going to be, this superstar, I guarantee you're going to pay a very huge cost. You may not have to pay it today. You may not have to pay it tomorrow. You may be able to live out your wildest dreams, but I promise you there's a cost. At first, you think you're willing to pay it. At first, you think, I can get this record deal. I mean, look what all in the news. You think that's just happening with Puffy? Shit, man. A lot of people got that same moniker. It was like a blueprint to break artists and to so look what happened to the foreigners that come over here and become artists. They wash out fast. They wash out. Things happen to them. But it's because of the false settlements. It's because of the uprooting of people from their lands, and it's because of capitalism, greed, and exchange, you know. And then we're all capitulant. We all are. Some people talk a lot of shit about, you know, they want to, want America to crumble and want all this to happen. But do you have a skill set to fill in the pieces when all these people got to pick it back up? What kind of infrastructure skills do you have? Can you build? Can you program? Are you an architect? I'm just asking questions. People talk a lot of shit about do you know project management? See, some people, the thing is, you only know what you've been trained to know. A lot of people don't stretch their their minds to develop skill sets because they want to. A lot of people make decisions because they are limited in their skill sets, or they're limited in their capabilities, or they realize they have nothing but that same thing that they complain about. You know, what I'm alluding to is when people respond negatively to me or negatively to you about anything you want to do, anything that you said, anything that you verified, maybe they haven't done that. And that's the reason why they attack people like us. That's probably why. That's probably why. Because if it were but not, what's the need in attacking the people? What's the need in attacking and not learning, or communicating, having a conversation and saying, okay, like, why? Just very simple. Like, if I say, and I can prove who and what I am, the response is, no, you're not, monkey. No, you're not. You're this. And it's like, this man is 65 years old and behaves like a child. You got really old people that get this social media, they get their little hands going on these on their little phones, and they get into Facebook and they finally get their accounts, but it's like they old and want to start thrashing and talking crazy. and talking a Churchill McGraw language. I ain't what I learned in school. And then you got some person with no education at all, none, third grade education. What you talking about? Acting, and then they, the insults. The one thing they love, nigger. Yeah, that's the first thing that comes out their mouth. And if you ask them where they from, America, America, from here. That's all I know. Well, say that then, because as I say again, people that are European-esque are not aboriginal to this country. I didn't say you wasn't American. I said you're not aboriginal to this country. You're aboriginal to a whole nother place across another landmass, and that's where your folks located. That's where your origins are. So you can't just sever ties with your origins, which a lot of people think you can do. And again, even what I was reading in this book, it's the severing with the truth, severing ties with the truth. So the thing is, I'm trying to make it plain, and I hope I'm explaining this the way I need to for everyone. The implosion of false settlements is what happens when people leave completely where they're from with an objective. Simply, just follow me now. They have an objective to go somewhere else. But throughout times in history, when you have fleets of people that have artillery and agendas, they're going to conquer another people. That doesn't mean those people weren't there. I mean, that doesn't mean those people. But then what they do? Let's just talk about what they did. They rewrote history. They wrote a romantic story about themselves and their conquest. But there was a lot of fabrications, a lot of mistellings, a lot of all-out lies, a whole lot of them. I mean, a complete lexicon of lies, if you really want to know the truth. I mean, with the changing of names and the audacity to even change geographical origins. These people call Egypt and Libya places that were in the Middle East, which is attached to a whole different landmass. And then they're going to say, no, it's the kinds of people, and you're confused. They say that's not correct. You're associating your religion and where you have conquered with your geographical location. I get this all the time because, a lady that I was arguing with, she was a pale-skinned Egyptian. She called out, I'm Egyptian. I'm Egyptian. Oh, you're not. Shut up. No, you're not. You're not Egyptian because the original Cometian people, or the original people that lived in that region, were dark-skinned people that even arose to that region from Lower Africa, which is now today the Sudan. And when they rose up, that's the Sudanese culture, but that was Nubia. That's Nubia. In the ancient times, that landmass was called Nubia. That Lower Africa was Nubia, and they actually populated Lower Egypt, because it was Upper Egypt and Lower Egypt. Okay, the north was the south, and the south was the north. The Nile Valley River flows from the south to the north, just like the Mississippi does right here in the United States. There you have it. So, when it comes to pale complexion, Egyptians, well, look at the surrounding regions. You're right next to Ethiopia. They have the same people. They were never colonized either. So you got Ethiopia there. You got Eritrea. They're brown, dark skinned. These are African people. And due to the fact that it was British, it was a British Egyptian culture because it was colonized by the British. So you had a great deal of, I guarantee you, Spanish. You got a lot of dominated European blood, and you probably had the same. Your cousins with the Italians, for Christ's sake. Now that's pretty much who dominated that region. So, that's just what it is. But you will claim because you've been there for the past uh, few hundred years that that's what you are. So when people all over the world have a problem with FBAs, when they're amalgamation, well, we're our amalgamation of pretty much Aboriginal blacks, um, Siberian, which is Eurasia. And if you want to call it European, that would be specifically the French, the British. Uh, and if you look at what happened to the Tainos and the people of South America, which were once very dark skinned race people, and they imported a great deal of Africans to Brazil, like 4 to 6 million. So they say those people didn't come to the United States. There was too many black people here, too many black Aboriginals here. That's what they say. I can find it in a book real quick. Hold on, I wanted to find it in this book because I'll tell you what Benjamin I think it was Benjamin Franklin, not Thomas Jefferson. I think it was Thomas. I'll tell you what he said. Let me tell you what he said. Voyage, expedition. Oh, chapter 1, chapter 2, the Americas. Okay. The original, the origin, the original of the Americans was they came and how people planted. All right, let me go a little further. Won't take me long. Give me a second. Introduction. Okay. All right. Oh. Yeah, Bartholomew into India. Yeah, they're talking about all the relationships that with the Americas and the voyages here because these were pretty much yeah. King Lane's African coast was discovered. Yep. And America is known as the America was not known to the ancients. That's not true. This they made errors. All these errors that they were speaking of the Americas. Okay. Chapter 2. Here we go. The first doubt and concern. 1. Here we go. 2. Peruvians. Spaniards carry oxen, sheep to the American Isles. Section 2. I gotta go a little further into this. Okay, this is inquiries whether the Constitution of the Phoenicians agreed with the Americans. Okay, this is getting somewhere. So, children, the Phoenicians and the American tongues. Oh boy, I tell you, they are complete and unadulterated liars. I'm sorry, I can't share some of this stuff with you. But I will share this. The Phoenicians, descendants from the Sidon, they say people, American and Spaniards, sprung in a turbulent Japheth, have subjected the American descendant to the Sidon of Canaan, and fulfilled the prophecy of Moses that Canaan should be the servant to Japheth. That's what they were trying to make up. But it seems that a great mistake. So to have derived from the Phoenicians from Canaan, for they are extracted from Shem, Hember, Abraham, Esau, surname Edom, from the saying Adam, where they asked Jacob that read because he knew not how to call the prepared pottage by the potter name. And Edom settled himself on the Mount Seir as part of the stony Arabia, and on the coast of the Red Sea gave domination to it. Because the sea was much frequently to the Atlantic and navigated by his successor, the Greeks called it Erythrium from Euthros, who is the same as Esau, and likewise signifies red. Heroto is also that Phoenix and the Erothros have the same significance in the Greeks. So they, the Edomians, of Phoenicians from the great Phoenix, far and near, under my kings by navigating in the Red Sea and formed, thus planted several coastal islands, removing at last to Syria. The seventh king of Edom, Moses reckoning, to be Baal Hanan, which named by transporting the syllables and famous Carthaginian generals Hannibal bear. Moreover, it may easily be discriminated that the Phoenicians extracted from the Hebrew have formerly spoke Hebrew since Arabic, for they dwelt before their removing of the stony Arabia. Saint Jerome said the Punic tongue agrees for the most part with the Hebrew, and Saint Austin tells us that many, nay, most of the Carthaginian words are Hebrew. Elisa, Dido, the first founders of Carthage, proves that Elsa or Elisha with the Hebrew denotes the Lamb of God, of my God, and Dido, a lover. But who can find at least likenesses between the Hebrew or Arabic tongue with the Americas? Lastly, since the Phoenicians acknowledged Esau of the father, what then concerns the Americas that the curse of Canaan, since they are no more extracted from Canaan than the Phoenicians? Thus much concerning the Phoenicians, some would derive the Americas from the Jews, others from the 10 tribes of Israel carried into captivity, the ground of which opinions is that the Jews and Israelites were scattered amongst all nations throughout they concluded that the Americas was also the people by them, that rather because the ancient Jews and the Americans were of one complexion and went like habited, both going without shoes, only wearing sandals and upper coats over the shorter linen vest. Both are humble, quick in apprehension, obliging, yet valiant. But it is certain they cannot be like the Jews, because the Americans changed their habits according as they live in cold or hot countries, and go not in the least like one another. Father Emmanuel relates that he saw a Brazilian not only stout, not only stoutly make his party good against three Portugal soldiers, but had not been by mere chance worse than them. So he beat the brakes off of three Portuguese soldiers when they ran up on him. I'm pretty sure that was with Capoeira. Lastly, the ceremonial religious rites observed by the Americans, which was used in Judaism. The Jews indeed had transplanted their circumcisions amongst diverse Eastern peoples, and have they only forgot the first ceremony and signal badge of their religion in America, which is yet not only they, but those Mahometans and other sectarians punctually observed. That makes evidence that scatterings about the faces of the earth will but will not bring them to reach America. See, when you show people things in plain sight, they don't believe it. Oh boy, the sacred text set for the twofold, describing the Jews, the ones before the birth of our Savior, when they lived and strangers in Pontus, Galatia, Cappadocia, Asia, Bithynia, and Babylon, and Alexandria, where there were the Asiatic and the European dispersions. Those of Asia had Babylon for their chief city and used it as their synagogues and cathedral translations of the Bible. Europeans kept their seat at Alexandria, where they had temples like that of Jerusalem and whistled the employment themselves in a Greek version of the Holy Scriptures. By the 72 interpretations under this is Polom, Polomius, Philadelphus. They were called wandering Greeks. Therefore, certainly the Americas are not derived from those Jews, and with a little reason from those which Titus Vespasian, after the destruction of Jerusalem, were derived in several countries, but they were never permitted that I may borrow words of Saint Cyprian to set forth with one step by the pilgrims toward the native countries, but strictly forbidden not to assemble to meet others, not to meet together in any considerable number, which would have been necessary if it intended to plant a new world. So there you have it. If you listen to what I'm saying, is they talked about certain people that had certain characteristics, they had certain um, demeanors, they had certain customs, and they knew who these people were, even globally. They knew where they came from, they knew how they functioned, they knew their customs, and they knew they had a valiant nature about themselves. So the implosion of false settlement show is coming to an end because I had to read you what we're really ruled by. I wanted to really go into kind of like how we were, how the globe has been subjugated. And it's funny how Europeans just don't see themselves in it. It doesn't surprise me. It's like they don't see themselves in nothing but themselves until it affects them specifically. As to what's going on like right now, it's crazy how we got this way. You know, the people you go to school with, you know, in the 80s, you had I had a lot of friends, white friends, a lot of different friends, but they have their allegiances to their parents. And when they told them they didn't want to hang with me no more, they didn't. They made up lies about me. I didn't want to be my friend. And I'm like, where you get that from? Because they dad, I remember CNC. I don't want to say their names. I don't want to get sued by nobody, nothing like that. But it was two white kids that I grew up with. And we was friends. We was next door neighbors. Next thing I know, they was like, their dad was like, "Nah, you can't hang with him." I'm like, "All right, whatever." You know what I'm saying? I didn't care, but it was just crazy because it's like they looked at me different, so I kind of felt that look like, "Oh, he's black." Yeah, I kind of felt that, so it's like, "Oh, okay, I know what your dad. Your dad a racist, basically." Because I didn't even speak to him anymore. He was just looking at me like this. He was like, "Man, fuck you." So he basically in his mind, I was a little thug. Man, we lived in the same neighborhood, right next door to each other. It was crazy, but I knew then that he taught his sons racism because when they initially met me, we were cool. We ain't had no problems. We're straight. But soon as I guess I didn't like the spaghetti. I don't know, but man, you kind of like even as a kid, when you're a black kid growing up in this country, and you're from this country, and you know where your grandmama is, you know where your granddaddy is, you have a different kind of confidence. So can't nobody really shake that when you have your family members. You got your cousins, you know. So A lot of people don't have that, don't grow up with that, not even familiar with that. But shit, that's all I grew up knowing was my family, my people, who I surrounded myself with. You know what I'm saying? So we grew up as a very strong, very close knit family, and that's because of them elders. But as soon as the men died and the elders passed away, the people moved, people dispersed, migrated other places. We left Pensacola. Some people never left Alabama. You know what I'm saying? So some people are still in the same places that they have been for hundreds and sometimes thousands of years, depending on where you're from. So I can always appreciate where I'm from. Do you? So this is for a lot of the Facebook tubes, and those people that have such a problem with foundational Black Americans. I mean, you should get over yourself. Get to know where you're from. That's what's most important. Isn't that important? Isn't that cool? Something you should try to do. That's the show tonight. I hope it was informative. You know, I'm gonna change up a few things, but I won't. I would never ruin the integrity of the show with being educational and being informative. So that you can have a different perspective about how the world turns, how it functions. Because the will is yours, but the more you learn, the more you understand about the intricacies of things, you make better decisions. You become more um, perceptive to what's going around you. Change your lens a little bit. It doesn't mean you change your behavior and go to protesting. No, it just sharpens you up to, you know, um, enhance your skill sets, uh, make you a more of a person that's willing to try new things and experience things for yourself that make you happy, that make you continue on being the best version of yourself. So it's all about you at the end of the day. I always understand and believe and understand that for sure. But that's the show tonight. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. And don't forget, the will is yours. Be cool.